Hello, my name is Becky Watkins, and I'm an adjunct instructor here at Mercy. And I am going to share with you today on building relationships and networking. So, I want to give a little background with some studies that were done. George Valiant is a psychologist who studied 268 men's lives for a total of 72 years. So that's like a huge longitudinal study. And he followed these men and looked at all different areas of their lives. And so at the end of the 72 years, he was asked, what was your biggest finding? And he said that his biggest finding was that the only thing that really matters in life is your relationships to other people. So pretty powerful. Brene Brown, who's another psychologist, also supports this with her comment of connection is crucial because we all have the basic need to feel accepted and to believe that we belong and are valued for who we are. So this whole thing about connection is pretty powerful. In fact, in 1944, there was an experiment that was done in an orphanage. Now, keep in mind, this was 1944 before there was really a lot of checks on experiments to make sure that they were not harmful to the human subjects. But they took babies in this orphanage and they divided them into two groups. And one of the groups, the babies were held when they were fed, they were held, they were talked to, and just nurtured in the way that you would nurture a baby. Then they had another group of babies that they gave bottles to, propped the bottles up, didn't hold them, didn't talk to them, didn't respond to them facially with facial interactions or anything, was just very robotic about it. Well, they had to disband the experiment because after just a few months, the babies in the group with no interaction began to die. So it's pretty powerful to show that our human connections are very, very important. So Valiant's study, back to George Valiant, shows that while taking care of our body helps, tending to relationships is also important. He found that it was how happy that his subjects were at age 50 that was the biggest predictor of their health at 80. So even more so than their cholesterol levels and other health measures that they would do. So, we're all in the healthcare field, but it's just interesting to note that really the importance that relationships play in health. So I am going to have us look at this whole idea of communication and building relationships with two aspects, relational and functional. So functional is when you communicate with somebody and try to engage with them with a goal in mind, like you want to get something done. So much of our communication has become functional. This is partly due to our fast-paced society, as well as our increased impatience. Anybody relate to that? Also, technology. Technology gives us information in bits and pieces, so we're used to just getting what we need and getting it quick and fast. So this would be things like you would use functional communication to make appointments, to get information, to purchase something. So just a little story that goes along with the whole idea of how functional our communication has gotten. I have a son who's in his 20s, and a couple years ago, I had sent him a text to say, as he wasn't living at home, sent him a text to say, hey, when can I call you so we can talk? His immediate response was, I don't know, what's wrong? So he had made the assumption in a very functional way that if I was asking to talk to him on the phone, that there must be a purpose instead of just that relational piece of just wanting to connect and get to know each other better. So relational then, on the other hand, it's not interrogating, but it's focusing on that other person with the purpose of learning about them with no other objective. And I say that lightly because we are doing this presentation on building relationships, but also networking. But I would argue to say that building relationships using this relational way is actually going to increase your networking, because those are going to be the relationships with people that you stay in contact with that are then you're going to be able to draw off of for those networking opportunities in the future. So I have a little acronym that I've come up with to help you engage with people relationally. So that acronym is CARE. And so we will go through each one of the letters, and I will tell you what you do for each of the letters. And hopefully that will give you a little basis to connect with people in a relational way. So first off, we have C. So C stands for compliment. So what I've noticed is that, well, first of all, we don't give very many compliments in our world today. That's kind of something that we just don't do. A lot of us are pretty self-focused, myself included. I don't often think about other people as much as I feel like I should. So compliments are a fantastic way to kind of break the ice with someone. And oftentimes, if you give someone a compliment, they are more willing to engage in a conversation with you. So what kind of compliments do you give? Well, they can be anything. Like, you can compliment them on their physical appearance. So maybe their hair, style, the color of their eyes. It could be something they're wearing, their clothes, their outfit, anything like that. It could be an act that they did. You know, maybe they held the door open for you, and you can compliment them for that you appreciate that. It could be a personality trait. Maybe you see them perform an act of kindness or generosity, and you could compliment them on that. So any number of things, that compliment is going to break that ice and kind of give you that connection point with that person. So a little story, back not too long ago, I had gone to the doctor's office, and it'd been a while since I'd been there, so they kind of changed things up. So I probably was kind of confused as I walked into the doctor's office, and you know, what used to be over here was now over here. And so I was trying to figure it out. And so one of the receptionists was like, I can help you over here. So I noticed her demeanor was rather down, and she didn't give me eye contact, and she just seemed like she wasn't real happy today. Now, I don't know what happened to her that morning, or what's going on in her family, or something happened when she got to work, or how the person before me treated her. But she just wasn't very interactive. So she began signing me in, and I thought, well, you know, what can I do? And so she had a very unique watch on. So I said to her, I said, oh, I really like your watch. That's very unique. And it was like something flipped in her. You know, she looked up, she had a more pleasant look on her face, and her face kind of shone, and she thanked me, and we engaged in a little bit of small talk from there. So that just goes to show how easily this works. Now, we didn't connect much further than that, because that was a very functional interaction where she was signing me into the doctor's office and I had to move on to my appointment. But just goes to show how a simple compliment can really help you connect with someone. Okay, so C is compliment, and A is ask open-ended questions. So open-ended questions are those kind of questions that cannot simply be answered by yes or no, or a one-word answer. So these type of questions typically tell us more about a person's life, about their feelings, their beliefs, more about really who they are. These kind of questions often will start with what, how, and sometimes who or why. So it might be, what do you do when you're not wherever you're at? What are you going to try next? Or how did that work out for you? Or why do you feel that that is important? Or what do you hope to do in the future? So these are all questions that we can ask that are going to get at more of what that person's about, and really look at what their passions and belief systems are. So through the through the questions that you ask when you're engaging with someone, you are going to look for commonalities. So you're going to use this later. So I want to say a little piece about that, though, to begin with. You know, you're asking these questions, but as a rule, we are not very good listeners. And it's okay. Like, I'm not either. It's something that I have to work on. But part of it is how we're designed. So we are actually designed to be poor listeners because our speech is at the rate of 100 to 150 words per minute, where our thought processes happen at 400 to 600 words per minute. So we have all of this extra time inside our head when somebody's talking to think about other things. So yeah, that's right. I know that right now, while you're listening to this presentation, you're thinking about lunch, or you're thinking about your class this afternoon, or perhaps how you did on the test this morning. So those things are all swirling in our mind while we're listening to someone. So once you know this, you can, and you're aware of it, you can work to actually focus more on what the person is saying. So we had C, compliment, A, ask open-ended questions, and now we are to R, which is for reciprocate. So when you're connecting with somebody, you are going to share bits and pieces of your story. So remember back when I said, as you're asking those questions, you look for commonalities in what they're saying. And you're hopefully listening well and paying a lot of attention so that you find those commonalities, and you're going to add bits and pieces of your story, because these are going to be the things that are going to connect that person to you as well. They're going to feel more connected to you if they realize that you share something in common. Now, you don't want to like totally take over the show. Oftentimes this is what we tend to do, but you want to try to keep the focus on them, just adding little bits and pieces of your story to let them know that you have those commonalities. So, and in order to keep the focus on the other person, we actually have to consciously give up the need to be right. So let them have their own beliefs, ideas, and feelings. And this can be hard because, you know, like we kind of like our beliefs and feelings and ideas. But we need to understand that there's nobody that's completely like us. And we need to allow them to have their own beliefs, ideas, and feelings. And that's okay. Because they have theirs, that doesn't mean we have to change ours. We can still listen and be curious and respectful to them, even though they're different. Elizabeth Hasselbeck had this to say regarding this: being right about an issue is less important than being right with one another, because you can be very right, yet very lonely. So people who share their ideas and experiences and feelings with others will generally have more friends and develop longer lasting relationships than those who do not. So thus, that will increase your ability to network, because you will have that bigger group of people that you are friends with or connected to in at least acquaintance-wise. So when we share with others, so remember that back and forth, that reciprocant piece, there can be a release of emotional tension, which then promotes attraction and closeness. So that's what happens in order, when you share something back with that person, you feel that connection, and that's how then that person likes you. And so you become connected. This tends to increase if what is shared is emotional. So going back to the open-ended questions, that's what brings out that emotional subjects, the sharing of feelings and ideas and passions. So this can lead to networking relationships that will help in your future. Okay, so on to the last letter, but let's review. C for compliment. A, for asking open-ended questions. R, reciprocate. And E is extend an invitation. So when you connect with someone, extending an invitation can look as simple as getting contact information. So maybe you exchange business cards or emails or phone numbers. Possibly you connect via LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or whatever social media platform that you use. So that way you have a way to connect with that person in the future. If you feel particularly like there was a connection that happened, you might not want to stop just right there. You might want to actually talk with that person about meeting again so that you can talk more fully and get to know that person even better. So that would be where you would open an invitation to go to lunch or to go to coffee with that person. Now, I mean, we're kind of in odd, weird times right now with COVID, and not everybody's comfortable to meet face to face. So you have to be sensitive to that. But I found that a lot of people are still willing to meet, and they're kind of hungry for that human connection. So you just have to use your best judgment on that. But if you're comfortable and the other person is, that might be something if you feel like there's that connection there that you want to further develop. So advantages of relational communication, they improve relationships. So actually learning to communicate and connect with people relationally is not only going to help you build new relationships, but it's also going to help you in your friendships and relationships with your family members, significant others. It's going to help with all of those. And of course, also bring about those new networking relationships. It's so also communicating in this way and building relationships through relational communication is also promotes mental health. So there's a release of stress and anxiety that happens through a process called catharsis that is kind of similar to if you went to a counselor. So yeah, so connecting relationally is really a catharsis type experience that happens. So I hope that you will be able to go out and practice connecting relationally with people that you meet. So just for the review, we have C for compliment, A for asking open-ended questions, R to reciprocate, and E for extend an invitation. So thank you for listening to my presentation. And yeah, if you have questions, you can contact me. Thank you.